everyone. Welcome back to the Live for Bikes podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, small business, retail, and self development. In today's topic, we're going to talk about shoplifting, break ins, scams, and anything you could do to prevent from people stealing your stuff. And stay tuned because I got some real good stories for you.
Oh, bikes is the way I roll. It's the way I roll. It's the way I roll.
Welcome back to the Live for Bikes podcast. Again, today we're going to be talking about shoplifting, break-ins, scams, and anything you need to do to prevent from people stealing your stuff. So, since the beginning of Live for Bikes, we knew that theft was going to be part of running a business, and that's kind of the reality of most retail stores where you're going to get stuff stolen from you. So, one of the things that you need to really think about and prepare for as you're opening stores and thinking about your business as it's growing, or even developing a store from scratch, is how to prevent stuff from getting stolen on the regular or minimize the effects that are going to minimize the loss. So because we're a bicycle shop, obviously, we sell items that could be quite pricey, and bicycles are stolen all over the United States all the time. It's a common problem for everybody here, and bicycles is just one of those things that people love to steal. So we've learned that preventing and setting up our storefront with as much security measures as possible was the key to prevent us from, going out of business. And again, as you're thinking of opening your store, your retail store, is something you really need to think about as well. So most retail stores come with glass windows, and glass windows offer you no protection. They just offer you a look into the store, and it gives you more natural light, which is really a nice feel for the store. But again, it's not really good for security. And long story short is that even after you set up your security gates, your alarm system, and any other measures like security cameras, that break-ins are still going to happen, and you're still going to have to figure out how to prevent them, and they're still going to happen. The key is, though, to minimize the effects and the time that you need to give yourself for authorities to respond to your alarm system. So, for example, here in the store, we had break-ins where the cops were literally here within 15 seconds because somebody reported them tampering with the doors outside. By the time they got in, the cops were literally here in 15 seconds. The thieves were caught red-handed. They didn't steal anything but break a window and just piss me off. And, they got prosecuted. So, again, that was one of the more successful break-ins that we had where they really didn't take nothing and they got caught really fast. So if somebody really wants to break into your store, there's very little things that can stop them. But what you really need to know is really focus on slowing them down and buying yourself enough time for the authorities to get here and help you catch them red-handed. So what we have here in the store, again, we have security gates, we have camera systems, and we have a alarm system that is wireless. So even if somebody were to cut the power, the signal will still travel to the authorities, and the cops will still be notified that there's a break-in. We have cameras in case the alarm system goes off. We're able to see if there's somebody in here, or maybe it was just sometimes a squirrel got in here one time and set the alarm off, and I had to check, and I thought I saw something move, and I didn't know what it was, and then it ended up being a squirrel, and I had to deal with that. But luckily, it wasn't a break-in, but the squirrel set off the alarm, so things like that happen. And again, it's just a matter of giving yourself enough time and preventing the assailant from really taking a whole bunch of your inventory, which could be really detrimental to your business. And that's one of the best things you could do is just maybe set yourself up and think about what you're going to do to prevent that stuff. The next thing to think about with your store, retail store in general, is to think about how you position your inventory. So one of the things that we do here at Live for Bikes is that we set up all of the most popular usable items behind counters and glass displays behind a paywall, so people need help getting the things that they need. And a lot of retail stores like the Walmarts do that now, where you have to buzz somebody to get the inventory. It's a common practice now. It's unfortunate that we have to do that, but it's kind of what the society we live in now. And that also is going to help, with preventing people just from shoplifting. Um, and by putting stuff in higher racks or items that are more popular, a little bit harder to find, or harder or higher up, where they need help with, it's going to help you to prevent some of those losses. So, for example, for us, pedals, grips, lights are very popular. So we put those behind the counter, and we always show them to people, and we're always in front of them and help them out with those kind of things. Items such as like bicycle bells that are not as desirable by a ton of people. It's just a small little accessory, but it's cute to have. We leave those out in the front, and typically, people, don't really are, dying to steal a little bicycle bell, because sometimes we give those away for free. Like seats are a pretty big item, and they usually need installation, and those right in front of us as well. Other items that are again a little bit more pricey, or then they're more specific. We put up a little bit higher in the store, where you need like a little stick to get to. So thinking about how you position your store is going to be again key to keeping your inventory safe. The other thing too is dealing with employees. Employees, sometimes will kind of help themselves to some of your inventory. So sometimes I have hired people that are really not bicycle enthusiasts, because I find that they don't really have value or find value in the inventory. They don't really care about taking stuff home or whatever. So sometimes in the past I've hired people that are like, oh, this seems like a nice gentleman or girl, and they again they're not super bike enthusiasts, so then I could trust them a little bit more. But dealing with also doing background checks with them is really important to make sure that their staff is trustworthy, and you could rely on them to help you prevent stuff from being stolen, and just help you be a part of the team. But definitely thinking about the employee situation is a smart thing to think about as well, because sometimes again people help themselves to little stuff that they think might be not not worth mentioning, but things add up.
Oh, bikes is the way I roll.
Doing physical inventory. So as you run along your store, doing physical inventory, either quarterly, bi-quarterly, or yearly, is going to be a smart way to keep track of your inventory. Make sure that the things that your POS system has marked as being there are there. And again, if things seem really off, then you're a little bit more aware of what things need to be taken care of more specifically. So for us, we run through a lot of different inner tubes. So tubes are a little hard to keep track of, because we run through so many different tubes. We run through hundreds and hundreds per year, and having that inventory always be match up is going to be difficult, because sometimes we got to warranty stuff, and we got to maybe a bicycle that's just sitting on the floor, just got a flat, we got to replace it. And then there's ways up for us to, in our POS system, um, to keep account of that, but sometimes it's hard. But if you've seen items that are real big and they should be there and they're not, that's something, again, the POS system will help you with that. And it's something that we do by quarterly here, or by yearly here, to help us with that um, system. So that's something to think about, and to for sure to do. Next thing on our list, one of the most common ways that people actually end up stealing stuff is through stolen credit cards and online fraud. That's one of the biggest, most common ways people steal. So that's one of the things that we train our staff to be aware of and to keep an eye out. So a lot of times, guys will come in with a stolen credit card, and they'll pick out a bike or two real fast, and usually because they want to get in and out, they'll pick up two bikes, and it'll seem like it's really good to, like, oh my God, I'm just selling two bikes really fast, and it's real expensive bikes. And then they ask you to run the credit card, or the credit card looks like it's beat up, or it was went through the washing machine, and it doesn't go through, and then they ask you to punch the numbers. So once you punch in the numbers in your credit card machine, then you lose all protection, and at that point, for me, it's a red flag, and I know that the card was stolen, and they're just trying to scam you for that money. And what happens with that is it feels like you lose twice, because you end up, having to pay for the inventory, and you got to give back the money along with the profits. So it feels like a double whammy when that happens. And people think that it's like, the guy selling credit card thinks it's a victimless a crime, but the store actually ends up paying for it if you don't have your right documentations, and the credit card company could be like, oh, where's the receipt, this and that, and if anything doesn't line up, then you're accountable for that money and that inventory. And the, typically when they coming to steal something, is usually going to be a couple $1,000s worth of stuff, and for a small retail store, it's a big deal. So that's one of the biggest things that happens with us. We've also had instances where we are offering financing with one of our third-party companies that we work with, and the company doesn't end up funding it because there was a fraud account, or it was a transaction on their part, so something that didn't add up on their part. This just happened to us recently. I wasn't aware that that was even possible, so keep that in mind as well, because again, when you're doing financing, if the company funding the transaction doesn't, is not compliant with, if you're not complying with all um, their rules and regulations and transaction processes, they're not, they won't be able, they won't fund your transaction, and it'll be the same thing where you have to return the inventory again. So that's one of the biggest things that I think to keep out for, because that's one of the most common things that people do for, that people will try to scam you on. If you have an online store, make sure that if something doesn't seem right, just to verify, ask for the customer to send you, verification of address or whatever you need to do to follow up with that. Online transactions and fraud too is very common. Make sure you're using like a company like Shopify that helps you verify all those information, people's addresses, and gives you a fraud analysis, to help you make decisions on what transactions to move forward with and which ones to cancel. And again, so whenever in doubt, I always just cancel, because I'm not gonna lose sleep over canceling an order, but I will sleep over giving away, a couple $1,000s worth of inventory. So that's something to really, really focus on as well. And if you do to go through any of this stuff, the best thing you could do is, obviously report it to all the authorities. Make sure you get police reports. A lot of times, even if stuff break-ins happen, or you lost inventory, you could run that by your tax person and run it as a loss, as a stolen item, and at least you won't be liable for the tax responsibilities on that, because you didn't sell it. It was a stolen item, and it was a loss. So there's at least that, silver lining. But again, make sure that you are keeping track of all of the different things that do get stolen, and report them to your accountant as much as possible. So again, my final thoughts here is just, again, try to learn from your mistakes, learn from different situations, different break-ins, and if there's something that you did or your team did, make sure that it only happens once. Try to really correct them. Have conversations with your team about what not to do in case things get stolen. For example, there was a situation here with one of my guys trusted a person on the bike to go for a test ride, and then the keys and then the ID were both either stolen, or the guy didn't care. He just took off with the bike, and we were just left with the keys and the ID. And it still was a loss again. And don't count once that, if it's not a live break-in, don't. I personally, nothing against the authorities. I know they're busy with doing a bunch of other stuff, but I find that once things like that are stolen, you know, because it's not a life-threatening emergency, we're not really on top of their priority list. So when we, stuff like that, happens to happen to us, I feel like, we're kind of on our own. And again, no disrespect to any authorities, they're busy doing other stuff. But, once, things happen, then, even if you have camera footage and police reports, there's really little things you could do to try to get stuff back. But again, the lesson to learn is to, not let it happen more than once. If something does happen, which they will, and it's part of running a business, then that's fine. don't take it to the heart, and know that you're not the first person to be vandalized and robbed, and just again try to prevent that situation from happening ever again. And hope this helps. If I missed anything or you have any comments about anything that I said, hit those in the comment section below. Want to thank everybody for your support. Hit that subscribe and like button, and we'll talk to you soon. Stay tuned for our next segment on bicycle products.
Bikes is the way I roll. It's the way I roll. It's the way I roll.
So long story short, depending on where you're gonna be tying your bike at, locks are great. There's different levels. Kryptonite is definitely one of the better brands, one of the most trusted locks out there. There's other brands as well, but Kryptonite seems to do the best here in our store. And they offer you the warranty depending on the level, starting on that $500 level on the level 5, and you do got to register that, and there's a fee for that as well, all the way up to level 10 of security or reimbursement or insurance. So the long story short on the locks is that depending on where you're tying your bike up, if a thief has enough time, they would be able to get into either the lock or the bike with enough time and enough machinery. So again, locks are great, but keep in mind that if you're leaving it overnight somewhere or high traffic areas, again, such as Walmart, the gyms, or churches, your bike is definitely going to be still susceptible to thefts. So keep that in mind, and trust no lock, essentially. Just keep an eye on your bike the whole time, or stay close to it and just keep checking on it, because there's guys out there that all they do is steal bikes all day long. That's their job. So keep an eye on that. If you have any questions about locks, there's a bunch of reviews. There's a bunch of other videos about that. I just wanted to give you a quick little rundown of my thoughts about jet locks in general and security, keeping your bike safe. Stay tuned for our next segment of frequently asked questions. Thanks.
Bikes is the way I roll. Bikes is the way I roll. It's the way I roll.
Welcome back to the Live for Bikes podcast. And we're keeping with today's theme. One of our Instagram followers asked, how do I keep my business secure from online theft? To be honest, that's a little bit above my pay grade. So what I can tell you is that there's definitely a lot of theft that happens from agents outside of the country where there's no extradition laws, and it's kind of almost like encourage where companies or hackers hack into like American companies. One of our providers got hacked into with malware that kept all their information until they paid the ransom. It cost them about $1 million to get everything back from them, and it was a big pain in the butt. They were out of commission for about a week and a half, and it was super expensive. So something like that, if it happened to a small business, it could be detrimental and just end gaming. So with all your online stuff, it's super important that you ask a professional. Again, this is probably above my pay grade, so I don't think I could advise you very, very deeply into what to do with preventing that kind of stuff from happening. Again, people that are trained and focused on this kind of stuff will definitely have better ideas on what to tell you about. But keeping your passwords strong, not using common birthdays, 1, 2, 3, or the word password for password is probably something that is probably not shared enough. So your networks and your shop, your passwords on your computers need to be strong. Capitalized words, letters, numbers, and characters would be a strong first start. And just know that there's guys out there, again, that will steal your stuff and will try to blackmail you for money to get your information back. And there's a ton of videos out there on that. And using two-step authenticators is another way to do that. Keeping your bank account separate and keeping your all your information as encrypted as possible. Also, probably trying not to write down too many passwords and places or save them on your computer. There's different ways to make yourself more vulnerable, and there's different ways to make yourself stronger from hackers to your online shop, your bank accounts, and all that stuff. And just being aware that things like that are part of running a business is something that we gotta keep an eye out, and just making sure again that you're backing your stuff up. If you have a POS system, that you're backing up your information. That if you have an online store, that your passwords are strong. That you're not sharing passwords, network passwords with anybody locally. That you just stay vigilant as much as you can to be able to prevent that kind of stuff, because again, hackers are way smarter than I at this stuff. And I think, generally speaking, I think if somebody really wanted to hack into any of your stuff, I think most of your basic emails, phones are definitely vulnerable. But by staying vigilant and keeping your password strong and doing things to just make it harder, you might be less likely to be targeted, because it's just going to be harder, and then they might just look for somebody that is going to be an easier target. So again, the overall theme of today is to stay protected, stay vigilant, and try to avoid making the same mistake twice when it comes to theft and preventing people from stealing your stuff. Hopefully you got a lot out of today's class. Thanks for your support. Please comment below, hit all that like buttons, and thanks again. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.